All right, everybody, we're back on Play It Forward today. We have Victor Palm, filmmaker, director, DP, as well as editor, highly talented in both of those three areas. The editing in the film we're going to be talking about today is really impressive, Stuck in the Mud, and the story is a really poetic story of a boxer from Sweden. Victor, can you take a minute to introduce yourself, please, and your story?
Yeah, I present myself as a director DP, but I do edit a lot as well. Currently I live in LA. I work mostly commercial work, but also documentary work.
Cool. And how long you been making films and how'd you get started?
I worked secure like in 2018, up until 2018, I worked security and I wanted something else. So the short story is that I started building websites. I know you software developer, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to do something else. I was like, I want to drink coffee. I want to listen to jazz. That's what I want to do. Whatever holds that.
While
That's
you're
what I want.
working.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to work from home.
Yeah.
So I did that. I started building websites. I was a horrible uh, front-end developer, but I was a decent photographer at the time. And I sort of capitalized on that, and I sort of just got pushed into that world through some travel videos I did with my girlfriend at the time, that a company picked up on, and they wanted me for videography and photography. So I kind of like got pushed into that. I quit my job and I started doing that. And after that, that's sort of like how my journey started.
Cool. Excellent, man. I'm guessing you're from Sweden, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
And that's based on the film that I just reviewed, Stuck in the Mud. What's your story coming to America, I guess?
Um, I kind of I was doing well in Sweden, and I kind of saw my trajectory as a director DP. I wanted to specialize, and I didn't love what I was seeing. I kind of saw where I would end up like a few years down the line. It's kind of like Sweden is a great industry for a lot of things, but I wanted something different. And then I
Clocks.
watched. Sorry,
Clocks.
clocks.
Yeah, don't they make great clocks and watches?
That's Switzerland.
Oh, my bad.
I
Sorry.
love that you said that.
My bad.
I love that you
Is it
said
the
that because
Swedish
it's
fish? What about those
Swedish
guys?
fish. That
Yeah,
we have fish.
yeah.
They have banks, the chocolate, and the
Bakes. There you go.
clocks.
The bakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah.
So I
Um,
was limited. Your career there as a filmmaker was limited.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I saw the movie Moonlight actually, and I was like, fuck. We're moving to the US. I gotta go to the US. I cannot do this in Sweden. So that's when we decided to move to the US.
M Moonlight.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Moonstruck. What's Moonlight?
Moonlight is a movie about it's a movie that's shot in Miami with some brilliant actors, and it's about basically a like it's shot in like childhood, adolescence, and then as an adult, and it's shot in the most beautiful way, and the story is so gripping. It's actually one of my favorite films, and I have been following that DP for some time, and I just like I felt that this is not going to happen in Sweden, so.
Awesome. Awesome. So you were
So
inspired by it, and it's an American DP filmmaker,
exactly, yeah.
just made
But
in America kind of thing.
also the environments in America, also the stories and like the width of it, like the width of culture and that culture that attracted me. Kind of like it's shot in suburb Miami. It's not like the pretty part of Miami, and it's
Mhm.
just like such an honest, beautiful portrayal.
Mhm.
I always look for stories. I always look for good stories,
Mhm.
and I felt like that was the direction that I wanted to go.
Well, Victor, thanks for all that, man. I'm glad to get to know you a little better. Stuck in the Mud is a beautiful picture. We gotta say, first of all, before I forget, you were nominated by Ellie B, who's a prior guest. Thank you, Ellie. And
Thank you.
and Stuck in the Mud is really beautiful. It's a story of a young man who had a difficult childhood, troubled childhood, painful childhood, abusive circumstances. We got to give him credit by mentioning his name. What's his full name?
Nicholas Bryant.
Nicholas Bryan, and it's a
Yeah,
beautiful story, a beautiful character. He's, a very, he's a fighter. He becomes a fighter, a Muay Thai, is it Muay Thai or Muay
yeah.
Thai?
Muay Thai.
Muay Thai fighter, and Thai boxer, and the story is about a survivor and how one survives. And it's a very poetic take on just a very, we're all fighters in our own right. We all have overwhelming circumstances now at some point in our lives as human beings, and we all have to know how to um, overcome adversity and struggle through that. And this is such a relatable picture for that reason, because it talks about how this particular person, Nicholas Bryan, did that and how he does that and how he's mentally strong. Um, Victor, can you set up the story? Would you like to share it any more than I just did?
I love that you say that he's a survivor. So it's basically a short film about Thai boxer reflecting on his life and the adversity that he experienced as a child, like who he was as a child, and how he changed that later with fighting. And we're following his reflections as we're seeing him um, basically fighting in the world championships of Thai boxing.
Mm. And I love how the film doesn't focus on the trophies. Neither does the character. Neither does Nicholas.
Yeah.
He really is more focused on his inner world, and the film is more focused on his inner world. And the first question to play it forward is really, where did you get the inspiration to make the picture the way you made the picture? Now, before I let you answer the question, I'm just going to say a little bit more in that. Well, here you were working security. You have some sort of, so there's some sort of hint of some physical um physicality or connection to being fit. Your other picture, you made a feature also about street fighters, not, Muay Thai fighters. So a different type of fighting and a different kind of brotherhood so there's this something going on in your background with fighting or physicality, and then there's this side of um, that seems that you're grappling through the picture of strength and resilience and overcoming adversity. So where did that come? Where did the inspiration come from in your life to make this movie?
It's a great question. I think that I think that it happened very subconsciously. Like we are subconsciously drawn to things that explain ourselves.
I
We
love
try
that, man.
to,
Hold up, hold on. We're subconsciously drawn to things that explain ourselves or help us define
yes,
ourselves in some way.
help us
Yeah.
understand ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that we it's the same thing when you find friends or people around you or whoever who kind of explain you, or you struggle with something, you have similar struggles, or you had similar struggles, so they can understand more of what constitutes you as a person. And I think that as filmmakers, we have the privilege of actually talking about those stories and writing about those stories. um, but I think me finding Nicholas was actually just, it was just subconscious. I just like knew he was a great kid. He's super fucking smart. And he's just such a character. He's like a one in a million person. So yeah, I think I just felt that. But I also realized later in time that my work has somehow always reflected some of the questions that I have, and some of the things that I struggled with, which is why I want to like always give them redemption a certain way. I always want to give them like, hey, this happened, but now look at this, look at what you have, or like look at what, okay, the public sees this, but you're missing this. Look at this side of things and understand this side of things. So the other thing might be put into perspective where you actually respect it or even look up to it.
Yeah.
Which is why like I didn't include the 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 status of the fights, but more of like internalizing the fight, showing the fight. Even such a thing as like when you show a fight, you don't show the whole fight, but you kind of muffle the audio and you sink into his mind, and he can sort of walk you through certain emotions that he has.
Yeah, yeah, it was beautifully done in that way. A couple of things to touch on with what you said in terms of well, there's redemption and there's certainly, Nicholas's wisdom, incredibly wise character, and the redemption side of it aligns with what he talks about is, he says he was afraid of everything as a kid. He grew
Yes.
up in a
Uh,
violent home. It was
yeah.
unstable. I think like a lot of fighters, and um he was afraid of everything. And that's a hard place to be at any age, especially as a kid. And Gandhi, it reminds me of Gandhi. Gandhi talks about being afraid of everything. He was petrified of ghosts. He was, deathly afraid. And
Yeah.
his I think it was somebody, a house domestic servant where he lived, or a caretaker, said to him to chant, to say the name of Ram or
Mhm.
God every time he's afraid, say the name of Ram. And I think the reason I bring Gandhi into the picture is because of a couple of things that Nicholas said. And one of the things he says is the turning point was when I promised myself to do this.
Mm.
And there's an element of faith in that, kind of like chanting Ram. He's established an inward landscape of great faith. He can't trust anything else in life, but he can trust himself.
Yeah.
And that is an amazing place to be. That is a place where you're standing on solid ground no matter what happens, the
Mm.
earthquake.
That's beautiful. It's very true.
And that desire came from him seeing, where we talking about redemption, that desire came from him seeing the adults around him, his caretakers, whose job it was to take care of him, unable to do that. And he says he wanted to be stronger than the people around him
Yeah.
because he realized it was from a place of weakness that they weren't
Yeah.
able to rise to the challenge of child rearing. And so he took care of himself. Um, and that goes right to the next question to play it forward, which is now, we were talking before we started the show, and we were saying how, you start from a place of inspiration and then you create your art, and then your art, if it's successful, it teaches you something, right? That's
Yeah.
the redemptive quality in the art making, as well as the redemptive quality in the storytelling, right? You're telling a story to
Yeah.
the audience that says, hey, look what can be created out of chaos, out of ash, out of pain and suffering. And now you've made the film, you've got time between, where you were and reflecting on it. What do you don't have to tell anybody else what to see, but what do you see as the meaning? What is the message for you? What is your takeaway from that movie?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the simple answer is that you said it well when you said I wanted to be stronger than the people around me. It's just such a like if you think about that, it's so absurd that you should have to do that, I but it takes so much strength, like like seeing the outside world, like you see beyond what you have around you when you have around you should protect you. And I think that's kind of like he always struck me as a person with a big worldview. He sees the whole world. He sees the universe. He doesn't just see himself. And I think that is for me the message. It's not about only fighting through adversity and creating this person you want to be, but it's actually like taking yourself out of the context and realize how big you are. How big you can be. It's a it's a great leap going outside of that because you have uh you have regression, you have so many like defense mechanism. As soon as we go outside of like our safety, even if we're suffering in the safety we are in, if we step out of that, our worldview grows. And I think that is the message. Yeah, and I think he's showing that by example that he was afraid of everything. He's not some kid that was not afraid of anything and that now he just started into fighting, but he was actually afraid of everything, and fighting would be the most like unorthodox thing for him to do, but he did it. And he actually like something you don't see in the movie, he actually beat when we got to Thailand, they pick the opponents, but it's like a lottery. They you get your opponent. He happened to get the threefold world champion, Thai Muay Thai world champion. This guy is Thai. He's so fucking badass, and he got assigned to fight this guy. It was almost like Nicholas coaches was like, "Well, at least we got to Thailand. You know, at
Yeah.
least we
Good
can fight
luck,
in
man.
Thailand."
Yeah.
We all, you could feel the morale of everybody. Just shit. Uh, so I'm actually getting emotional going back into it. But I'll say
Thank you.
this.
Keep going. I want
Yeah,
to see tears,
yeah,
man.
yeah. You're gonna see it. When he did not only beat the world champion, knowing everything that Nicholas came from, knowing everything. I've seen all of it. You've seen a 10-minute edit of it, but
Yeah.
I know this guy. I
Yeah.
know what he went
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. You lived it with
Seeing
me.
this broken kid beat the shit out of
Wow.
it was
Wow.
it
Yeah,
was
actually,
a landslide victory. He had
wow.
nothing to come up with. He beat his ass so bad,
Wow.
and everyone's just like, "Holy shit!" You'll see my goosebumps on my
Wow.
arm.
Wow.
Um,
You sound like my wife.
and it was just like the craziest moment. And for me, imagine being there working with that, doing that
Beautiful,
movie and
man.
seeing that,
Yeah.
and you're just like, shit, this is like, yeah, that. So that's a
Yeah.
long answer to
Wow.
your
No,
question,
no,
but
no. That's the right answer. Thank you.
yeah,
It's amazing, Victor, like what we're talking about and the and the landscape shift and some people call it the Matrix and kind of modern parlance. But this kid, right? He's still a kid, man. He's a young man. How old is he?
yeah. Right. I think at the time it was like 20, 22, something like that. I don't know.
He's a baby, man. He's so
Yeah,
young.
exactly.
And he's so strong mentally. And he says, he talks about life being what you see, what you
Mm,
see and what you see being a choice in your mind. And so he's seeing as a witness, he stepped outside his own personal suffering. He says, "Look, I could have felt sorry for myself." But he steps outside his attachment and his identification with his own personal suffering because he has a vision of what he can be and what he has become. And he became it. He became it in a very like, okay, I'm going to use the physical reality of the world to just like, all right, I'm going to survive, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to challenge myself on the biggest level I can challenge myself. And this is what I found. And this is the way it is. And it could have been anything else. He could have become a pilot.
yeah,
I don't know. He could have been, anything. But this was like a very physical way of blowing up his internal world. And he's still a young kid. I mean, he's who knows what he's going to become. So I think, the majesty and is he's created this inner world where he is, in a yogic sense, the witness. He has identified with the witness mentality and he's able to see comprehensively and feel comprehensively. And that taps him into wisdom, the flow, and
yeah,
how the universe comes. And he stepped into this environment. And who knows? Did he step into the ring with this person to win? Did he step in with the intention of being present in the moment and just doing his best? Did he step in
exactly.
just here? I'm stepping in, and let's continue to step in. Who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe you do. Do you have an idea of how he stepped into the ring?
I actually don't know. I think I knew, but I forgot it. It was such a long time ago,
Yeah,
so I might have
yeah.
known. Yeah,
And it's a mystery, man. It's a mystery. And the beauty, I think, is that we are all capable of that.
yeah,
That
yes,
is the message. We are
yes,
all capable of that. We are all, he's not like, gigantic, robust. he's
No.
a fit guy and he trains
Yeah.
clearly, but it's his strength and strength of heart and that
Yeah.
mind body connection. And I can't help but think where there is this context, and this kind of touches on the next movie that you made that's about street fighting, the love. There's this when you step into that world where you're a witness,
Yeah.
there is a connection. There is a loving sense.
Yeah.
There's an awareness of the loving grandness of the universe
Mm.
that's beyond the microcosm of human suffering and fuck up. And
Yeah.
then you're there and you're inspired by the wisdom of the universe. You're listening to it, and
Mm.
and you're at one with it. And here he is. He's a fighter, and he's fighting, and he's instilling some punishment and hurt on other people. So the interesting kind of dichotomy there, and and then the dichotomy kind of that correlates with your street fighting movie, which I just saw the trailer of, which is a feature that you made. It's like those guys are like, they're risking their lives,
Yeah.
and they're in this brotherhood where
Mm.
they feel compelled. And there's a clip in there where a guy gets, looks like he passes out and is seriously hurt,
Yeah.
and they just rush in, right? It's not like they're like, oh, they rush
Yeah.
in to help him. So what are your kind of takes on this idea of fighting and love and that relationship?
That's a great question. I think that um I think there are like a few foundational emotions, like the purest of emotions, like the purity. And I think they're all very attractive to us. And if we can't feel one, then we can feel the other.
Mm,
And I feel like that's kind of like what I experienced in fighting. I think it's like, hate, love, violence, power. There's more. Um, but I think it has to do with. It's funny because it depends on where you are in the process. It just because people are fighting doesn't mean that they're finding themselves. But I think that, as in Nick's story, when you come from something and you become greater than your background, greater than your background, that's when you first experience, that's when you first can experience true love
mm,
or true power.
mm,
That's not love, that's not dependency, love that's not built on a deficiency. Uh, but it's the same story in Nicholas's film, Stuck in the Mud, as in a lot of the other films. But it's about people overcoming what they came from, and finding purpose through that. And hopefully they'll turn out to be good people as they found their power. Hopefully it's not feeding into a narcissistic journey to like overpower what they come from, because the fear of what they came from is so big that they can't possibly show weakness. So now they have to become almost like narcissistic, uh, but that they actually come from it with a high road of understanding their past. So that's love for me. That's fighting and love. Fighting, you can fight, but if you overcome what you came from, that's when you like truly and you find yourself in that. It's like everything. It's like, you do soccer. Like so many people came from soccer or yeah, football, say in America, uh um um but I think, yeah, it's about overcoming your background and learning self-love.
yeah, thank you.
That's the correlation. And that's actually the same thing with my next movie is about. It's much more raw. It's bare knuckle fighting, no rules, no rounds on concrete. These guys, I've so many times I thought someone died on that concrete. But it's the same story. And this I've seen people go from part-time criminal into actually like living a very virtuous life as fighters with dignity and integrity, and how that changed them. I also seen the opposite of people starting to fight and actually becoming like trying to overpower their background. So I think it's all correlated.
Yeah, it's
But
fast.
when I speak about it, I try to show that in these movies that there is a way to overcome what you came from, and there is a way to come out big with integrity and dignity at the other end of that.
What do you think is the difference between the people who make the choice to go one way or to feed their ego or to become virtuous?
I think how we're susceptible to love. I think that that I don't think that we just by our own device choose love or choose hate, but I think we're pushed. I don't I it, Almost like you do have free will, but almost like you don't because your surroundings constitute your choices, which is why it's so grand of Nicholas to say, I wanted to be stronger than the people around me, because he wants to be bigger than the context he's in,
Yeah.
which is the hardest thing you can ever do. Um,
Well, it's interesting because, I think that's, both sides of those people, right? They want to be bigger than their environment. And does that mean expanding your ego or does it mean expanding your heart?
exactly, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, and I think it might start with expanding the ego. I think
mm.
it always starts there. It started there for me as well. But at the end of it, when you become when you see your progress and you're actually, a lot of martial artists are the gyms that you'll find, a lot of them have brotherhood, and they have all of the gyms that I've experienced. I can only speak from my own experience, but I've seen that in others as well. But have they offer brotherhood, they offer routine, they offer discipline, they offer accountability, which is something that it's kind of like going into the military, which is something that a lot of people haven't experienced in previous lives. So now they find order
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect, man. Thank you. Um, Victor, in having made either of these two films now, you've made more. You've made a lot of stuff, but with respect to Stuck in the Mud and respect to this fight picture that is called King of the Streets, uh, walking away from those movies now, here you are. How have you been personally changed?
Actually, we're still after 5 years making King of the Streets.
It takes a while.
Yeah, it takes a while. It changed me how I see people, how I approach people, and it kind of like I've had the privilege of kind of turning every stone. A lot of people just see a rocky beach, but I've actually had the privilege of walking slowly down that beach and looking under the rocks and like just exploring and asking questions in environments where you normally would never be able to.
Yeah.
And I think I understand our collective challenges better than I did a few years ago. I
Mm.
understand the challenges and I respect people that go through that better. And I can also see where where I don't have to be as judgmental. I have to show up with my own integrity, but I don't have to be as judgmental because I understand the collective challenges. I also understand that people might be in different places in their process. Like right now, someone might be in the ego phase of things where they just try to separate from the trauma with ego because they want to show that they're stronger than their fears, as well as others might be in the phase of like opening up to love. So it's a process, and some people will never be open to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing more compassion, more understanding, and more wisdom. And
Yeah,
it starts with, these documentaries. I mean, you're going in, like you said, you're turning stones at these stones. Some of them you don't, you'd be afraid to touch. They're huge, they're big stones, and there's a big underbelly. And when you can see, and some of them are happy to be turned over.
yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful experience. That is one of the uh gifts of documentary filmmaking and asking questions and putting the string of pearls together as you
Hmm.
go along. Victor, we covered a lot, man. Thank you very much. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure to have you on the show. Did we leave anything unsaid?
I mean, I feel like I can talk with you for hours, but
Thank you, man. Thank you. I really appreciate your sharing your wisdom, your strength, your experience with us. It's an honor to have you on the show, and look forward to having you back when we got King of the Streets cut and ready to go.
oh hell yeah. Yeah. Thank you
All right.
so much.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, we're out on Play It Forward. Thank you for being with us today. Later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.